make everybody happy. I'm not suggesting that we can fix all of that right here, but somebody's going to make a decision and somebody's going to be upset. But these are the kinds of things that you have to think about. You have to.
And I totally agree with you, and that's why we actually moved it over here.
And then you're going to have another,
Right.
neighbor that's unhappy with you too. So you have to understand,
Right.
it might be that that amount is the wrong amount to have on your property right now. It might be that you're growing out of what you've got. And it might be that we need to put more conditions on, because there are certain conditions that were not put in there at the original, or not the original, but the most recent. And we always do put in that we can put in other conditions from time to time as the need arises. Sounds like the need has arisen.
Right, and as long as we do need a permit from the zoning board to do that, I totally understand. But because we have over 2 acres, the Mass General Law is 2 acres or more.
I understand that.
You constitute a farm, and boards cannot unnecessarily or overburden and regulate a farm. So there
We've been
is-
through that.
Unnecessarily.
Yes.
We've been through all of that.
We have
We've been through all of that.
correct.
But I'm suggesting
Correct.
that now it is necessary. It might not have been before, or it might have been before, and we didn't do it, but it is now.
I think it goes both ways, though.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Understanding that, you know, I mean,
Yes, it does.
they're next to the nursery, they're next to the farm, there's gonna be mulch, there's gonna be room. I mean, that's part of the process, that's needed for the operation
But
of
it
the
also
business.
means that you're going to have people complaining about it.
I agree, but at the same time,
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And this is
I-
not why we're here
No,
tonight.
no,
for
I
that.
know, I know,
But
I
this
know.
is
No.
this is behind it all.
understand exactly
It
what
really
you're saying,
is.
yeah.
And you're exactly right, and that's why we are going through our whole special permitting process. And we do have a meeting coming up with the planning board, and they will be, as you know, town meeting passed the zoning change.
I understand
And
that.
so
But in the
we-
meantime, we do have some people that are seriously hurt in all of this.
And-
They
and-
seriously can't use part of their
And
property
that's why we
because of
moved
this.
it all the way. They
I
are
agree.
about 3 acres away from this site, and that's why we totally sympathize and we understand it, and that's why we've flip-flopped the quadrants. And on this, as a buffer between their house is on the other side of this barn, so they cannot see these trucks from their house, and they cannot see this because they're on the other side of the barn. So we are really doing our very best
I think they're
to-
trying to work with
to
the building
address
department to
their
address their
concerns.
concerns, whether or not they can do it or not.
Right.
I'm appreciating that, and yet we're still here. That's all I'm saying. And we are not going to be addressing that, because but I'm suggesting, just, you have
So,
to,
understood.
Right. And through the permitting process, we will be installing some fencing.
That's,
But that's not before us then.
Yes, right.
Okay. Is there any other evidence anybody wants to present? Anybody here in the audience that wants to speak or present any evidence that relates to this really limited proceeding before us tonight, which was to effectively overturn the building inspector's decision not to take any further action pursuant to the 2 previously issued decisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals? I mean, that's really what we're here to consider tonight. Anyone here that want to add anything to the mix on this?
I would like to ask a question if I could, because tonight was the first time I heard of a newer firewood incident, and could we clarify that? I think in the beginning of Phil and John's
On October
presentation, talked
4th,
about
on
a-
October 4th, which is a Saturday, I witnessed trucks going into the warehouse. I heard them being loaded with firewood. I witnessed dump trucks leaving that warehouse loaded with firewood, and I have a picture of a dump truck leaving the property, going down Hillside Street towards Route 138, loaded with firewood. So, I've seen it. I'm not lying. And I hear it.
I wanted to ask.
We understood from the ruling of the Zoning Board of Appeals in February that the amount of firewood that could be stored on the nursery could only be that sufficient to service a cash and carry business.
Loaded by hand into
That's
your
exactly
car.
right.
Correct.
Right, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Not delivered by dump
Why
truck.
would Mr. Rowe have seen a truck loaded with firewood or heard a truck being loaded
So
with
what we
firewood?
have to do now is our firewood gets delivered to Canton, as you can see on the delivery tickets. And then what we have to do is bring in small truckloads to the barn for those people to cash and carry.
I saw them leaving the barn full of wood.
Correct. So then what happens is this one particular time, we needed some more wood out in Canton, so then we had to bring it back to Canton, and that's why you saw it going towards 138.
I hear it all weekend long, one particular
Wow.
time.
Yeah,
Again,
But I don't know really what was in that, I
I
don't.
would disagree with you, because
Yeah.
we're the one doing it. I mean, it's not happening.
Well,
It's stored in Canton.
again, they
It
have,
makes no sense.
why was it
Well,
needed
the
in
ones going-
Canton? Why was it needed in Canton on October 4th?
I'm not sure, I don't have.
But logistically, if the wood is in Canton, it makes no sense from a business perspective. The wood's in Canton, to come to Milton, to load up, to go back to a delivery, it's
Well,
not real.
that's why I'm asking. You said
I don't
that,
know why, I don't know why it was.
It could have came, we've been running short, it could have came from Eagle Farm, and then we backed into the wood barn. We have a good relationship with Eagle Farm. So oftentimes you'll see our truck running down Hillside Street with loads of wood on it.
I can see the barn from my property line.
But just
And I
think about
saw it go in empty and come out
It makes no
full,
sense.
twice.
you're right, it makes no sense. That's why I'm asking, why was it going back to
But
Canton?
does it-
Because it doesn't make sense, and I'm trying to understand
It's
it.
an
Why
insult
was
to
this
even listen
happening?
to this guy.
Don't go there.
again, they have many photographs in here. They don't have any photographs of them loading it up in the barn.
But I'm hearing Maggie say that that truck went to Canton on October 4th
No,
because they needed it
I
there.
don't know the date. I said I don't know the date, this is not date stamped, that's how I started this conversation. It's going back to Canton, so I don't know if wood is in it. I can't see any wood in this truck. I don't know what's in this truck.
Okay.
I mean,
We have to wrap
is it,
this
I
up.
mean, is it October 4th? We can try to find out what the story is with that. And again, to me, I mean, this looks like to me that he took pictures when he was in his car to suggest that he was in the house, he observed loading of trucks of firewood.
Well, we can ask
I
them.
did. And here's what
And he
happened.
didn't take any
I
photographs.
saw that, I can hear it from my house, I'm loading the trucks. And the diesel exhaust permeates the whole neighborhood. This is Saturday, it's a rainy day. If you look at the weather, it was raining on October 4th. I was coming down Forest Street going towards Hillside Street, and I saw the truck come out. I took those pictures with my iPhone. They're crummy pictures. When the truck stopped at the corner of Forest and Hillside Street to take a left, truck turned left, I could see the wood in the truck. It's covered with a tarp, but some of the wood was exposed. So after that, I went home and I went to my back fence and I can hear them loading up the dump trucks. It's quite noisy when you take a front-end loader and you take wood and you dump it into the bed of a dump truck. I can hear that loud and clear from my house. I went over to the fence and I watched a truck go in, get loaded up, I can hear it, and leave, and a second truck did the same thing. So, you know, this is what I can see from my house.
Does that ever happen? Forget the date, forget whether it was October 4th or September 17th. Does that happen?
No.
Ever? It never happens. You never load wood on the site to be brought somewhere else.
We're too new into our season to say it will never happen.
What hasn't happened, I'm
It
asking.
can't happen, when it's not
Can't
allowed to
Right,
happen.
Right.
It does not happen.
And
We
as
store
you
the
said,
wood
it's a
in
rainy
Canton.
day.
Yeah.
Our wood is all 100% kiln-dried firewood. We don't deliver our wood in the rain. So I find it very odd that we would be delivering our kiln-dried firewood to dump it at someone's house in the rain. We pay a premium price to get extra dry wood.
But the testimony before us tonight is, it has never happened.
Correct.
But that isn't what I heard from the testimony. I heard that it was dropped there, and then it was taken
Went
to
to
Canton,
Canton.
and it's
So it
all
did
over the
happen.
place. It's dry, kiln-dried firewood, but on a rainy day, they were driving it to Canton. And in Canton, there is absolutely no protection.
How do
from
we
the
know
rain.
there's, I'm sorry, how do we know that there's firewood in that truck? I can't tell from the picture that there's firewood. Wait, your testimony was
Yeah, my
that you
testimony
heard
there-
stuff
No,
land in
that
the
I saw
truck.
that firewood.
You
My
saw
testimony-
firewood in that truck.
If you
I
look-
could actually see
If you
it.
look above the sign.
I can't,
Okay,
honestly,
well,
I can't tell.
I'm just telling you
all
what I
right?
saw.
All right,
keep
I
my
want to, no, I want to hear.
in the car
what-
from now on.
Hang on one second.
It's not too
What I
difficult.
thought you had said is that you heard firewood hit the truck. And my point was going to be that it
That
could have been
happened
fire
first.
truck, it could have been anything that was loaded in
I
there.
saw that first, then I went home. I was driving down Forest Street. I just happened to come across this.
Okay.
And then, from there, I went to my home on Parkwood Drive, and I can hear them loading throughout the day, Saturday, firewood into dump trucks. I went to the back fence and I witnessed the dump trucks leave the warehouse. I can see the warehouse from my property line.
Okay.
You can see the dump trucks go in, and you can see them come out, and I can hear them being loaded
And you saw wood in the fire,
Yes.
firewood, kiln-dried
Yes.
firewood in the truck?
in the truck, yes.
Okay.
What I heard him testify to was that in that truck, you saw wood, you
Well,
know?
that's what I'm
And I
asking
also
now.
saw wood in the trucks leave the warehouse. So, I don't know what you hear, I'm telling you what my testimony is.
Again,
But we heard Maggie say directly that the wood was taken out of the barn and driven to Canton. And she said they would never deliver it on a rainy day because it would get all wet. But there's no shelter in Canton.
We don't know what they have in Canton.
There's no shelter in
I'm assuming they have a
Canton.
warehouse in Canton.
Well, let's
where
get
they
the
put
pictures
wood.
out. Let's get the pictures out.
again, part of this, this isn't Josh and Maggie doing the work. Part of this is their employees doing the work, all right? Now, if we present the employees with these photographs and ask them what is occurring here, we could have a very reasonable explanation. What we're trying to do here is trying to explain the situation when, in fact, it could have been their employees that did it, and they could have a very reasonable explanation to explain.
But the employees do what they're supposed to do, guided by their employers.
Absolutely.
That's what we're looking at right here. We're not looking
Absolutely.
at Josh or Maggie, we're looking at, this is a business, and does it need to stop doing something or not?
But what I'm saying is, they're saying that this is a truck, again, I don't see it, they're saying this is a truck loaded up with firewood. If they go to the employees and say, the truck, the circumstances, they can give a very reasonable explanation as to why, or what's in the truck. We don't know, we're speculating, we're taking.
Maybe it was mulch.
I don't see it, I don't know what's there. I don't know
Maggie
what's in
said
there.
herself that the truck was driving to Canton with firewood because it needed to be reallocated.
But
That's what
he's
she said
he's
herself.
testified, though, further, that he's actually seen firewood being put in the truck and taken off the site. Forget the pictures.
Well, I don't think,
I think he said he heard it.
and I see
And then
it
now
leaving the
he said that he-
garage, leaving
he
the
can-
garage.
He can tell you what he's saying.
All right, and we're telling you that there isn't firewood,
I don't think he can
Go
see
look.
firewood.
If you read the invoices where the wood goes, it's very clear where the wood's going. If you take a ride by there, you'll see the big piles of wood there in Canton. The only small pile of wood in Milton is for pickup only. I can't be more clear. We invite you to come by tomorrow.
Yeah, but going by tomorrow doesn't tell us
Well, I'm just-
what happens there every day, day in and out, day out, when we're not
What
there.
they're saying
I
is
understand that.
Conquer, it's like.
This-
But we're trying to prove the negative, so that makes it very difficult.
No, I feel like we're getting
Yeah, but-
charged guilty and we're not even
And
doing
I
it.
feel the right, he did do, they we understand the process. They have a complaint, they go to Joe. Joe is the building inspector, he's your building inspector, he enforces it. He came out on numerous occasions. I kind of feel like this is Joe's explanation. We are being ambushed with these photos, and I don't know why, you know, you're not
And again,
listening to Joe's testimony.
and again, I mean, part of the problem here is we don't know who's actually driving the truck and what they're doing. We have a truck that's undated going down the street, and like I said, there could be a very reasonable explanation for it, but we don't necessarily have it right now. We can speculate as to what we think it might be, but the fact of the matter is, until we know who's actually in there and who's doing it and why they're doing it, I understand you said that, you know, they're responsible for what they do, but, I mean, he could have been dropping someone off at the nursery to do nursery work. We don't, again, you know, it's all speculation. It's all-
I mean, we're going into fairy tale land now.
But that,
We
It
are.
could be this, it could be that,
That's
you know,
exactly right.
I want to look at what's happening.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I wish it was date stamped, and perhaps they should have showed us the photos before. We could have done our own investigation to figure out what had happened. I thought we were here sort of to go on what Joe had viewed throughout the summer.
again, I mean, all I can say is, look, they don't have the, other than what's bagged for individual consumption, they don't have it. You can go to the Canton site, you can go to, they've gone to great pains to try to separate everything as much as they can. And again, there is some overlap with regard to assets, there is overlap with regard to labor, dependent on what is needed. But the landscaping business is being operated out of the, what's it called? The Canton premises. The nursery is being operated out of the Milton property. What they do is somewhat similar, but what, as I understand the order, is saying, look, you can't do it on a large scale here, all right? You know,
Can't do it
I'll,
Can't do it here.
well,
Can't do it.
well, I mean,
Not even small scale, you can't do it.
I read one of the decisions, and it said that if you could do the wood on
Oh,
carry.
the wood,
right?
cash
And-
and carry, yes.
Exactly, and, you know, and other items associated with the nursery business, but it's not on bulk. Again, I could be wrong, but that's, I thought the decision of May 14th said that they could do the small items for the customers coming in to do it. There's definitely overlap between what the two do. The bulk aspect, all that other stuff, is completely separate and can't.
Can we look at this picture one more time? And what it shows is construction material which was not allowed. And the Oldfields agreed to that. They agreed that stone, these pavers or these slate slabs, construction material would not be stored at all. And Joe said it was there when he inspected, but he found no problem with it.
It's not construction material. Sorry.
It doesn't,
I think this is a law of diminishing returns. From my perspective,
I
we
totally agree.
Unless somebody has some new evidence to offer, I'm going to close the public hearings, we're going to deliberate and vote, because this is going nowhere at this point. So, do you guys agree with that? Is there any new information, not argument, but new information that anyone wants to present to us in connection with this application? Please do so, otherwise we're going to close the public hearing and deliberate.
Is it from which one?
Okay, so that we are going to close the public hearing, and at this point, we're going to deliberate in open session as to what the appropriate course is to do. The only issue before us tonight is Mr. Prondak's decision dated August 4th, 2014, declining to take further action in the Norfolk Superior Court and finding that Thayer Nursery was then in compliance as of August 4, 2014 with the existing recent zoning board decisions and the corresponding enforcement orders. And in that regard, I note that there were 4 orders that were in the 2 decisions that we're talking about here. The 4 orders, the first 3 were in the September 26, 2013 decision, and they said One, Thayer Nursery shall immediately cease and desist from operating a commercial landscaping and commercial construction business on the premises. Two, they shall cease and desist from maintaining or storing vehicles, dumpsters, or other construction-related equipment on the premises incident to the commercial landscaping and construction business. Three, that they'll cease and desist from selling and storing mulch, loam, fertilizer, stone pavers, stone dust, and gravel as part of a commercial landscaping and construction business, and that those kind of materials would be removed from the site. So those were the three that we issued in September, and then in February, that was focused on the firewood issue, and we said that firewood would not be permitted to be sold from the site, and that they would cease and desist from doing so, except that they could sell a limited amount of firewood to customers who came to purchase firewood in an amount to be carried away in their personal vehicles and to be loaded into those vehicles by hand, and you could store sufficient quantities of firewood in the barn that would be necessary to meet the demand. So the question is, at least in my mind, I'll frame it, and you guys can comment, but is whether the evidence before us would require the conclusion that there's been a violation of any one of those 4 orders at this point. And we would have to, well, we're being asked to review Mr. Pronak's decision of August 4, 2014, so we would have to vote unanimously that his decision was wrong in its conclusion that there were no violations of any one of these 4 orders as of that point in time. So I think that's really the issue that's in front of us. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I guess such a deck, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. There was 2 subsequent orders, one with regard to firewood and one with regard to the use of loom and mulch and stuff on, did you mention that?
There were 4 different orders, 3 in the September order, three orders, and then the 4th one was in the February order, and the February order only related to firewood. The September decision had...
But there was another decision as well.
But
The May 14, 2014 decision as well?
And what did that say?
That dealt with, it basically said that you couldn't, what's it called, sell bulk mulch to loom, but they could sell it, let me see.
They could use it on that property.
They could use it on their property and sell it in retail. It says permits of sale for merchandise reasonably necessary, includes bulk storage and sales, so you can't do bulk storage and sales of the loom, the mulch, stone, sand dust, but it does not permit such,
But does permit
such products to be sold at retail in smaller bags, and use and storage of the above materials may be continued by the appellant as necessary for maintenance of the nursery stock.
That's, I recall that. I don't think I have that decision in front of me in the package, but okay, I do recall that. So the hour is late, and I'm gonna cut to the chase on what I think about this. I'm very concerned that Thayer Nursery completely and consistently and without exception comply with each element of this order. And I recognize the difficulties attendant to that, but that's the way it is. And presumably you'll address a lot of these outstanding issues in the special permit process, and I think that's great. And I hope that it's properly conditioned and that a lot of these issues are addressed. But based on the evidence that's been submitted to us tonight, I don't feel that I'm in a position to find any clear violations of any of these components of our orders. And I don't think the evidence is sufficient in my mind to overturn Mr. Pronak's decision. I'm not saying that these things don't happen, I just don't think that the evidence before us tonight is sufficient for me to make that kind of a finding, but I'm happy to hear what you guys think on the subject. Virginia, if you disagree with me, that's okay. So say what you have to say.
I'm disturbed that we are here. I'm disturbed that we've had to be here again, and I don't think that you get complaints when nothing's wrong, and so from the totality of what I've heard tonight, is there any one thing that would put me over the edge? Probably not, but there's a combination of several things that have these reasons or excuses behind them, but they really do come up to something that is making me decide that there is a violation. I think the storage of the stones, the blocks, the dust, the pavers, the slate, and while that might end up being for something on the nursery, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing that as some storage there that's indicative of not particularly following the rules there. If it is something that's going to be used in the nursery, then use it. Same with the mulch and the loam and stuff. If it's going to be used with the nursery, use it. Don't just store it there. If it's something that hide it. Put it in the barn. Put it somewhere where it's not just it's not making your neighbors upset. I'm not convinced that there's not landscaping business going on there, and so sorry, Joe. I have to say that I'm in disagreement with you.
No, not feeling it.
I don't think I've seen enough of the evidence to say that there's been a violation. With respect to the same items that you were talking about, it seems reasonable to me that if they're in the process of restructuring the way that the site is being used, the testimony is that that's what the purpose of these materials is. If they are selling, if there was testimony that they were selling these things for commercial purposes from, in connection with commercial landscaping, I would be concerned about it. But to my untrained eye, the things that I see there are consistent with what Ms. Oldfield was saying is possible to be used in terms of in connection with the nursery business. So I haven't seen enough personally to overturn what Mr. Prondak said in his letter, at least not at this time, though I am obviously, as you rightly point out, we're here for some reason. Obviously, folks are upset about what's going on. My impression, not having been directly involved in this case before, but my impression from what I've heard and what I've read in the record and otherwise is that there's been, some ongoing concerns with the extent of the ongoing operations at their nursery. That's obviously giving rise to complaints from the neighbors, and I'm sensitive to that, but I also think that, again, I haven't seen enough yet to overrule what Mr. Prondak found at his site visits. So that's where I'm sort of sitting at the moment.
Is there anything that we could do? Let's assume we vote 2-1.
Well, the result is the same with
Right, it
2 to
doesn't,
1
it's 1 to 2, it doesn't, it has to be unanimous, so it doesn't really matter. But are there other things that we might do in a decision? For example, one thought that comes to mind is those materials that we've talked about. And Virginia, your point that, okay, if you're going to use them, use them. Is there some specific time period that we could impose that would be reasonable to say, we're not going to overturn Mr. Prondak's decision, but, for example, we want all of that stuff that we see in the picture off the site within 60 days? I mean, is that a reasonable thing for us to do?
I think they use it at different junctions. In other words, again,
If you want us to put this in a box, we'll-
The order says the construction-related materials shall be removed from the subject property.
Yeah, but I think, it doesn't, again, if I'm reading it correctly.
I'm talking about
Construction
the
materials in
pavers,
connection with
the stuff we see in the picture.
No, I know, but, and again, I just don't want to go down a slippery slope where they're saying you can't have mulch there. I
No,
understand.
mulch
I'm not saying
mulch is
that.
mulch is different.
There's a difference between trying to accommodate neighbors and trying to work a reasonable thing.
No, I'm not talking about accommodating neighbors. The mulch is a different issue completely. I understand that mulch is used in the nursery business. I understand that. But that stuff that we see in the picture, that's not used in the nursery business. So that stuff could be removed. That's construction-related materials, from what I can see. And I think we've already ordered that stuff to be removed.
I agree, and again, we can do that or whatever. My only concern with regard to the order is that it does talk about construction related material, but it's, as I read it, it's incident to the commercial landscaping and construction business, if I'm reading it correctly.
Right.
In other words, there's a limited aspect to it. And
Well, whatever that stuff is in the picture is not mulch and it's not loam. It's, I don't know what it's gonna be used for, but we want it to be out of there. I think it should have been out of there already.
but again, I mean, I'll talk to my, you have a minute to talk?
I'm not, this isn't a negotiation. I'm just
no,
saying to you.
I firmly believe that is used in our nursery business. I will 100% say that. If you want that to be moved, I will move it off. If that will make you feel better.
It's not a question of my feeling better. It's a question of whether you're in compliance with the orders. So yes, I would like that stuff to be moved off. Does anyone disagree with that?
Is it okay to put it in out of sight? That was one comment that one of the board members made.
That would, out of sight, is that all right?
If it's all right with you.
All
But
right,
we
that's
do
fine.
use them for Christmas tables. That's the
I
problem.
mean,
Literally, it does have a use. And we're gonna take our tables, wooden frames, and put them right on top of these things.
Let's say that the
This is how
stuff
I
that
read.
appears in that photograph will be removed from sight immediately. Okay?
Well, when you say site, is it S-I-G-H-T or S-I-T-E, as opposed to?
I think he meant
We're all
SITE.
talking about it, GHT.
All right, that's what makes
Oh,
sense.
okay.
Anything else
I
that we
wasn't
can
sure.
deal with? I guess, other than to say, again, I'm coming down in your favor on this, but other than to say that I don't care whether it's the truck drivers, whether they're on a frolic of their own, what they're doing. We don't want any wood to be coming off of that site for any purpose. When it gets there in quantities that are sufficient for the limited trade that you're supposed to have, and it doesn't leave there for any other purpose to go anywhere at any time, ever.
No, I agree with that. You know, if they're short at Canton.
That's what
whatever,
the
then they-
order says.
No, I agree. If they're short at Canton, it doesn't come back from nursery to go back to Canton. I agree with that.
It's not clear to me that you've been violating the order, but clearly to me, any wood that leaves the site, ITE, for any purpose, is a violation of this order.
Unless,
Unless it's
Unless
a
it's in a
person
car.
putting it in his car,
Right.
or his, whatever.
Truck. Sound truck.
Okay, I mean, why don't we put this to a vote then? So we're going to stay, as we previously indicated, you vote, Virginia, and I don't mean to put you on the spot on this, but just to be clear, you vote to overturn Joe's decision, and Nick and I vote not to do so.
Correct.
And therefore, his decision stands.
Correct.
Is that correct, Nick? Okay. And I'll draft some kind of a decision relating to this, and I'm going to reiterate certain orders from our previous decisions to make them very clear. We're going to incorporate this element about the stuff that is in this photo, which I may attach to the decision, just so we're clear on it, that's going to be immediately put out of sight. And I guess that's it. So we'll draft that. I'll draft that as quickly as I can. But I think we're done here. Okay. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks.